debunking hobby hot takes. Let's go, right? You see these things being spouted all over the place. Social media, Reddit, Board Game Geek, again, as a might equals right side of things, oftentimes. Or an echo chamber, if you will. No. Let's go. What am I talking about? Let's go right into it, right? Crowdfunding is X. Particularly, especially across social media, Reddit has a hard-on for this. Crowdfunding's horrible. Like, you have a post that says something bad about crowdfunding on Reddit. Oh man, those fake internet points just come pouring in. You critique crowdfunding as just a horrible business model in the first place anywhere? Man, people are all over that. Crowdfunding is awful, right? It's absolutely atrocious for our hobby. It's done nothing good. It preys on FOMO. You can't get good things out of it. Wait, what? Gloomhaven? Anybody? Frosthaven? Anybody? A lot of the games over the past couple years that end up on crowdfunding top 10 lists, a lot of the games that end up on top 10 lists for a lot of people, regardless of source, Spirit Island, anybody? That was crowdfunded, folks. Now, that's not to say there's not a lot of junk out there too. There is. But I'll wager that the top of crowdfunding go head to head to the top of retail very competitively as a whole. You can say a lot of bad things about crowdfunding. The truth of the matter is you can say almost the same amount of bad things or the exact same bad things, mirror imaging each other on either side. Oh, it's just a pre-order system. What? I see people pre-ordering things all the time. I see whole YouTube videos that are dedicated to saying this month you should pre-order this retail game. These are the games you need to buy this month at retail. So pick your poison. At least with crowdfunding, more often than at retail, you can peruse a rule book beforehand. So there's at least that. Retail, maybe the ceiling's not quite as high, but the basement might be a little bit higher as well. So pick your poison, right? And let's not pretend here as for a second either that retail is getting away from the exclusives, right? I mean, Direwolf has definitely gone that route at retail lately with the promos. Pre-order from our website, pay 20% more and you'll get a promo. You know my feelings on promos. Promos are one of the biggest banes of existence for me in the hobby as a whole. Unless you're a completionist, and it preys on completionist side of things, tendencies, on retail and crowdfunding. Crowdfunding definitely more, but we're seeing that, really gone away from. It's really the get it at a cheaper price aspect of things nowadays with a lot of the bigger companies too. So it's not necessarily even as much of that, although there definitely is still going on regardless. Second big thing, you see derided, railed, just spoken down to, right? Collections like this behind me, right? Collections are bad. You go a vast majority of places, you get at some point inundated with the thought, the echo chamber, that having this many games is bad. And you know what? I won't make the argument that it's good. But the argument counter to that, it's not a black and white situation as many people want to make it out to be, right? I am the game collection for my local group. So they want to play something, I have it. I have the means, I have the storage, I have the time, ability, whatever else is necessary. So it maybe prevents my friends from having to buy things as well. So it's not as black and white in that sense. Some people get a lot of joy out of collecting. Some people get a lot of joy out of organizing or painting. And that's okay. But somehow, the only enjoyment that a lot of people will like to tell you, you can't get enjoyment out of those things. That's bad, Chris. You can only get enjoyment if you're playing all of them 37 times a year. Period. Nothing else. You're a horrible person. It's a waste of money. You shouldn't do that. Collecting is bad, Chris. Meanwhile, my brother-in-law goes golfing 100 times a year. I'm making that number up, but illustrating my point here, Is he bringing anything home with him afterwards? Is he improving his golf that much dramatically? I don't know. But how much money is being spent there? I have a physical, something I can hold on to, keep track of, or even resell at some point to recoup costs. And, you know, he might get the physical improvement from the golf game. Mentally, board games have been proven. Now, recently, we've also seen that there are some studies coming out that it's good for your geriatric folks as well. The geriatric population, my parents, your parents, helping with memory, helping with cognition. So, what's more important, right? This side of things or being a stroke or two better in your golf game? There's no right answer. But yet somehow one of those, going to 2 movies a week, you know, at the theaters, like people do that anymore, just kidding. But that is, you know, oh, you have a vast knowledge of the theater. You have seen all of the movies that have come out recently in the last year. Like, somehow that's okay in our culture too. But, you know, collecting all this stuff? Now, I'm not talking about completionism, like I said earlier. OCD to go along with that, right? That compulsory doing that. But non-compulsory? It's something different. Shades of gray. If you can't have that conversation, maybe that's on you. Let's talk about something else, though. Let's talk about something even close to my heart, right? Why isn't there better quality content? Why are we dealing with this? This is crappy. Chris, your production is horrible. Your video looks like crap. Why can't you just do better? Let's go back to that golf analogy. You know what? Why can't my brother-in-law just all of a sudden be a completely scratch golfer? He's just clearly not trying hard enough. Just do better, right? Chris, why don't you have production like Shut Up and Sit Down? Why don't you have the production or the wit of them? Why is nobody has their wit, folks. If you had the wit of Shut Up and Sit Down, or no pun included, or Board Game Bollocks, whatever it may be, right? Like, you would do it. You would do it. It's not like people are like, you know what, I just don't feel like using my extremely large wit to engage the masses. I think I'm going to produce a subpar product for the sake of doing so. No one says that. Like, he doesn't go out there and golf poorly on purpose. So that just, really irritates me when I see those comments, right? Like, I am non-tech savvy, for example. So the fact that I even have this, and the fact that I can even edit and do a halfway crappy thumbnail on a, couple times a week basis, that's rather impressive for someone who is all math and science, no thumbs, and his 9-year-old draws better than him. So, it's okay. Judge it by the quality of the content. Also, the side note that goes in there too is it's really easy when you have someone to talk to regularly about this, right? Like, there's a lot of couples channels. There's a lot of channels with people who are unmarried. There's a lot of channels where if you're doing this full time, yeah, your stuff is going to be a little bit better. I would expect the bar to be higher, folks. But if you don't fall under some of those categories where, it's a little bit easier for whatever reason, people clamor about this level of production. But truth be told, you put out good stuff, well, except for me, people will engage and people will watch it. The YouTube algorithm, that's a whole nother beast in and of itself. The other one that sort of grinds my gears, especially around this time of year, we just finished PAX Unplugged, right? PAX Unplugged. I don't even know what the next convention is. I don't keep track of these things. I don't go to conventions. But our hobby makes it seem like conventions are the end-all, be-all of things. Everybody has a convention now. Dice Tower has like 3 cruise conventions, bunch of content creators are having conventions now. I have a convention locally, like just everything under the sun. And it's made to seem like on a lot of our hobby circles that conventions are an absolute necessity. There is so much FOMO nowadays with conventions, it's ridiculous. And again, we're seeing the rise of some promos. We're seeing the rise of early shipments and early copies being sent over to drive the FOMO up. Crowdfunding or retail, regardless. It just depends on the time of the year. And we're seeing just, going back to earlier, we're seeing, and this is the negative side of things, people just going there and buying hundreds and hundreds of dollars worth of games. Because they can. Now, can with an asterisk, right? Not because they, really, really love it, but hey, I can, therefore I do sort of thing. So there's nothing wrong with this, like I said earlier, necessarily. But if you're buying it sheerly out of FOMO, if you're buying it merely because you need to be the first one to have it on the block, well, also, is that the same? Is that different? But, Board Game Geek, they hype it up all the time. Board Game Geek makes it seem like, man, you're missing out if you don't get this convention under your belt, right? Here's the preview listing. Here's the hotness. Here are all the hyped ones that you need to know about. Man, you are, especially on media side of things, from a social media standpoint, here's my haul, here's my haul, here's my recap, here's what was great. What? You got that big collection I was talking about earlier? Do your own convention. Do your own local convention at your house for a couple hours on a weekend. Or longer. There's nothing wrong with that. It makes it seem like there's this in crowd. That if you go to conventions, I see it. There's this in crowd. And if you don't go, you're not on the in. And you know what? Truth be told here, truth be told, you're not in. You're not in the in crowd. I'm not in the in crowd. The in crowd is the in crowd for a reason, right? Just like in high school. But you know what? You can get just as much fulfillment and enjoyment without being in the in crowd, folks. It's okay. It's okay. Do you. Screw everybody else. Do what makes you happy. I'm not going to say do what sparks joy. I think that's a whole nother topic conversation. But do you. Don't fall into the traps that are being thrown at you from all of these avenues. You got to do it this way. You got to do it this way. You got to have it this certain way. You can't have too many of this. You can't support this here. Make informed decisions. Make informed decisions that are right for you. Don't do what anybody else says. Don't buy into the FOMO from a publisher side of things, from a crowdfunding side of things, from a promo side of things. Any of those issues. There's a lot of good things about the hobby. There's a lot of not so good things too. And it's okay to be critical of them, but just because it doesn't work for you, this is where I'm, sort of tongue-in-cheek, self-inflicted wound here, the irony of me saying this right now, it's okay. It's not going to be all black and white. And if, something is presented as this is the way you got to do it, well, maybe not. So let me be clear at the end here, right? That's not being a totally ironic statement. It's you know what? This is the way I look at things. And if you look at things differently, I will respect your opinion to be wrong. Just kidding. I will respect your opinion. We can agree to disagree too. That's the bottom line, right? Because there's no absolute in this. Period. Although, again, the irony of that statement, it's not lost on me. I'm done. Ramble over. I'm going to get myself in trouble. Peace out. See you later.